I'm Taylor from Tab Reviews, and today we're going to look at the Xootr Mg. Now, for those that aren't familiar with this brand, Xootr is pronounced Xootr, not Xootr or not scooter, it's Xootr. And this particular model, called the Xootr Mg, is called so because Mg stands for magnesium, and the deck of this scooter is completely made from magnesium. Now, magnesium is a very light metal, and it's also very, very durable. So you can know that this scooter is going to last a very, very long time. Now, these scooters, especially from this brand, tend to be very expensive. They're definitely kind of on the higher end of scooters, but they also tend to ride extremely well, and they also last for a very, very long time. So if you're looking to spend a good amount of money on a very, very nice scooter, this is definitely the brand that you want to be looking for. There are three things that separate these scooters from other scooters. Xootr's done an excellent job of having a really, really nice handbrake. This handbrake works extremely well. Other scooters, most of the other kick scooters don't have handbrakes, and if they do, they don't work super, super well. Xootr's done an excellent job of mastering the handbrake. Now, the handbrake is much, much safer to ride with. I found you're not supposed to ride in wet conditions, but even in wet conditions, the rear brake doesn't work very well. The handbrake will work perfectly, so it's much, much safer to ride. Now, a second reason this scooter is different from others is you have this magnesium deck. I'll talk more about it in a second, but it's extremely wide, and it makes your ride much, much more comfortable. Now, the third reason, and probably the biggest reason this scooter is different from others, is these wheels are arguably the best wheels ever put on a scooter. And that's the same for really all the scooters of the Xootr brand. These wheels are made from a very low resistant polyurethane, and they can glide what feels like forever. Scooters are really nice because you can ride on the sidewalk, and it's much quicker than walking. I work in a hospital, and it would take forever to walk to work, but there are times where I want to not drive the car to work. I like riding bikes, but the problem with bikes is you have to ride in the bike lane. And riding in the bike lane just makes me kind of nervous because you have lots of drivers out there that aren't watching where they're going, and I'm always worried that I'm going to get hit. Scooters are perfect so I can ride on the sidewalk and I can't get in trouble. As you can see, this scooter does stand up by itself, which is a nice feature. You just have to get the handlebar at the right height and it will stand. And I want to show you real quick how it latches. So underneath you have a little pin. You just take it out. It will stand up, and you just slip it in. So it's super, super easy. Some people complain about the pin. To be perfectly honest, the pin's been great. It's very, very easy to use. Xootr has actually done an upgrade on some of their scooters where they don't even have the pin, they have a little latch version, which some people say is easier. I'm perfectly okay with the pin. It seems to work just fine for me. The handlebars can also be adjusted up and down. So you can see right here, you can push it down, you can go all the way up. I've heard people that are higher than 6'6" have no problem using it. I'm about 5'11", and I use it probably a little less than half as high as it can go. Something that I've realized is that the lower the handlebar is, the smoother the ride. I guess if you put it kind of higher up, it tends to vibrate more, and that's kind of the same with all scooters. And so I actually prefer it a little bit on the lower side. I feel like it gives me much more control of my steering. This scooter has handlebars that are a little bit more narrow than your typical scooter. Now, some people complain about it. They say it's less stable, it's harder to control. I haven't really found that to be the case. When you have handlebars that are wider, it kind of feels like you might be more stable, but it's also it can also be harder to turn because you have to move your hands a farther distance in order to turn. I don't really think the handlebar width really makes a big difference in your scooter. Now, the handlebar brake works extremely well. Like I was saying earlier, even when it's wet outside, it works very, very well. Someone that hasn't been riding a scooter for their whole life, or someone who doesn't have a ton of experience with scooters, definitely benefits from having a brake on the handlebar. My height adjuster did rattle a little bit, which was frustrating, but then if I kind of undid it and then locked it again, it would stop rattling, and at least that would be silent. So I think you just kind of have to move it around for it to be completely silent. Like I said earlier, the height was definitely best low for me. I grew up using a razor scooter, and when I got the scooter originally, I had it almost all the way to the top, and I realized it doesn't feel as natural if I have the handlebar all the way up. When I lower it, it feels much better. Also, you get less vibration the lower the steering wheel is. Now, if you look at the steering fork looks much different on the scooter. It looks more like kind of the wheels on a grocery cart. Now, Xootr has said that they've done research into this, and this is actually theoretically the best way to have the fork oriented. They say with it oriented like this, it's much stable and it's less likely to get stuck on potholes or bumps in the road. So here's the latch pin for folding. It's very easy to use. One concern is you want to make sure you don't lose the latch pin, because then you're basically helpless. Your scooter's not going to work. Here's the platform. The platform is extra wide. Now, the wideness of the platform can actually be extremely helpful when you're first riding a scooter. Right off the bat, I mean, you can get used to scooters with smaller decks, but if you're gonna ride for maybe hours at a time or for extended periods of time, your feet get really tired because they're in the exact same position the whole time. The other day, or a couple times, I've noticed that if I've gone for a couple hours, which I do a couple times every now and then, my legs get super tired because they're in the same position the whole time. When you have a wide deck like this, you can kind of switch positions, you can move your feet to different parts of the deck. It's just much more comfortable. The only downside being that you have a bigger deck and it's not as small and compact. It doesn't make that big of a difference, but if you're looking for the smallest scooter possible, this probably isn't the one for you. Now, also another kind of pitfall of a wider deck is that you have the potential to scrape the side of your deck when you're turning if you're doing too sharp of turns. I've heard of people having this trouble. I've been riding this for a very long time, and it's actually never happened to me. And I've been riding scooters for a very long time. I take sharp turns. I'm pretty rough with it, and I still haven't scraped the bottom. I've even looked at the sides of my deck, and it doesn't have any scrapes from scraping either. So I'm pretty confident that that's really not a common problem. Now, one thing, unfortunately, is the deck does rattle. Now, it uses your weight on the deck to suppress the handlebar from kind of wiggling back and forth from where the pin's put in. And so when you aren't standing on it, you can kind of bump it back and forth and makes a noise, but when you step on it, then it doesn't make any noises again. But when you go over big bumps in the road, it does rattle a little bit, and so the deck can bounce up and down and make a little bit of noise. Now, for the deck is only 9.9 pounds, so it's very light, especially for how big it is. That's why they chose magnesium, and that's why, I mean, it's essentially the name of the scooter, the Xootr Mg. Magnesium is a very strong, durable, long-lasting metal, and it's also very light. Now, here are the wheels. The wheels are extremely smooth. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it's self-lubricating. You're not even supposed to lubricate yourself with anything, because whatever lubricant you add won't be as good as what is originally on it. They work extremely well. Now, these wheels, they roll forever on smooth ground, and so if you're going to be scootering in a place with smooth pavement, this is the scooter for you. There really is no scooter that is better than this scooter for smooth pavement. If you're going to be on bumpier pavement or rougher cement, this scooter tends to be a little bit more, it tends to bounce a little bit more, it tends to vibrate a little more. So if you're looking on going on rough terrain or cement with lots of cracks in it, this won't be your smoothest scooter, and you might want to look into a scooter with shocks so you can have a smoother ride. Also, something to watch out for is you always want to make sure you're looking out for any sort of wet weather or leaves in the road. You want to avoid both of those. The scooter doesn't do very well with those. This scooter in general has been extremely stable. It can fit people that weigh a lot, and it doesn't even phase it. So in summary, this scooter is definitely one of the more expensive scooters, but if you're looking for a high-end scooter that performs very well, this is it. If you have money to spend and you want to get just the best scooter possible, this is definitely an option for you. What makes it stand out from other scooters is it has the wide magnesium deck, which is extremely comfortable. It makes riding it much, much easier. You have the smooth polyurethane wheels that, like I said, are arguably the best wheels ever put on a scooter. They work extremely well.